Hello there, I'm Nathalia Melo, your unfiltered fit BFF. Mom of two turned CEO of a fitness empire. Someone who truly understands the struggles of trying to stay fit, sane, and sexy, all while juggling work, life, and motherhood. And this is the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. Follow along wherever you're listening and join me weekly as I help busy working moms just like you simplify your fitness journey so you can lose fat, regain your confidence, and feel sexy AF. It's time to stop living in the what ifs and hiding from the cameras. It's time to regain control over your body, feel sexy naked, and wear a bikini confidently. People already see you as a super confident woman, but it's time for you to feel the same way too. Come on, let's go. Today's guest is one of the most respected voices in evidence-based fitness, James Krieger. James holds a master's degree in both nutrition and exercise science, and he has published research in top scientific journals, including the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition and the Journal of Applied Physiology. He's collaborated with leading researchers like Dr. Brad Schoenfeld. He has written over 500 articles and presented at major conferences around the world for physicians, dietitians, and fitness professionals. With more than 20 years in the field, James has built a reputation for translating complex science into practical, real-world insights. I'm so excited to have him here today to break down the data and help us separate the BS from what actually works. Thank you so much for being here, James. Welcome, James, to the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. I'm very, very excited to have you here. And just for context, I don't know if you remember this, but when I sent you a message, but we met I was pregnant with my son. My son is about to be 10. So I was 10 years ago in Bath in a seminar that in a presentation that you did with Alan, Brad, and Brett.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that presentation in Bath. That was a fun time.
You was a lot of fun. That was such a good group of people too. I wish, I think that since COVID, live presentations kind of slowed down a little bit and they're starting to pick back up. And I love that because I feel like it's such a great opportunity to connect and to learn.
Oh yeah. I think, obviously COVID, I think slowed down the live presentations for a while,
Yeah.
I haven't done a live one now. The last time I think I did a live one might've been 2019, maybe.
What? Oh, don't threaten me with a good time. We have live events. So I say less. You're planting the seed here.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. It was I think it was Australia, I think was the last one I did. And there were a bunch of people there, Elaine Norton and some other people. So it might've been that one, or it might've been Finland. I know I gave one in Finland. Maybe that was 2019. Yeah. And then COVID hit and then,
everything slowed down.
Yeah. So
cool. So let's jump straight into it because I remember this one thing that you talk about in that presentation. And it was really when I was getting more and more involved with the more science-based, I had just come off from competing and stepped away from the bullshit and went into the real thing. And you said something in the presentation that he literally stopped my tracks. And I'm like, I've been living a throne of lies because you said something that muscle doesn't burn as much as people think.
Yeah.
That it does. And because, everybody's like, oh, if you build muscle, you're going to be this fat burning machine and you're going to be walking and the fat's going to be melting off. And what you said was very different. So can you talk a little bit about that? And what is the difference between fat tissue and muscle, and what is the actual data behind it?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's one of those things where I don't even know where the number came from, but it's one of those things where somebody says something and then it gets repeated so often that everyone just kind of accepts it and believes it and no one questions it. And so it was this 50 calorie per pound number. And people believe that, yeah, for every pound of muscle you build, you'll burn an extra 50 calories per day. And so that would mean, hey, if you put on 10 pounds of muscle, you're going to burn an extra 500 calories a day and everything. But I remember when I first heard that number, I was like, is that really true? I was like, where does that number come from? And I remember even doing the research. I was looking at journal articles. I couldn't find anything to support it. And eventually I found a journal article that actually looked at the, metabolic rates of different tissues. And it wasn't even close to that number. It was like, it ended up being something around maybe, I think, I'm going off memory here, 6 or 7 calories per pound. It wasn't, like it literally was not the number that people throw around. And so this idea that, you add a bunch of muscle and you're going to burn all these calories just by sitting around, it's just not true. Now, does adding muscle increase your energy expenditure? Yeah, it does. It's not nearly the amount that you think it's going to. You add 10 pounds of muscle, you'll burn an extra maybe 70 calories a day. It's not as dramatic as you might think. Now, there's other benefits, though. I mean, ignoring all the strength and everything, I mean, there's other energy expenditure benefits. We know that people who resistance train, at least there's some data to suggest that they, one of the things that you lose, or one of the things that goes down when you lose body fat, is your NEAT, or your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. There's some evidence that weight training helps preserve that a little bit. So in that sense, weight training can help preserve some of your energy expenditure. You'll just be naturally more active during the day. And it was also interesting, I think on one of the papers I saw, one of the things that happens when you lose weight is your body tries to become more efficient for the same movement. So it tries to find any way it can to conserve energy during movement, because every time we move around, we waste some energy as heat. Like, we don't capture all the energy we expend to create work or to create movement. And so your body becomes more efficient, and it starts to expend less heat for the same movement. Well, we find that when you resistance train, it actually tends to counteract that effect. So, and that may have a significant energy expenditure benefit. So there's definite energy expenditure benefits to weight training. It's just the actual muscle itself isn't going to give you as big of a boost as people think. So
yeah, it's that overestimation. And just for contrast, and I know that you're kind of trying to go by memory here, but roughly we're looking at 6 to 7 pounds of calories burned per pound of muscle.
yes.
What would it be the comparison to like a pound of fat? Just for my own nosiness.
It's estimated a pound of fat is still way less. So the energy expenditure for a pound of fat, I want to say, again, I'm going on memory here. I'd have to go back and look at my presentations to dig up actual data. I want to say it was 1 to 2 calories per pound. So muscle definitely expends more. Any type of metabolically active tissue will expend more energy than muscle does. And I think that's also where the misconception comes from with people, because they think of fat-free mass. A big portion of your resting energy expenditure or your resting metabolic rate comes from your fat-free mass component of your body composition. The problem is when people think of fat-free mass, they automatically think of muscle. And what they don't understand is that muscle is only one component of fat-free mass. And in fact, most of your fat-free mass is your internal organs. And that's why fat-free mass is so related to energy expenditure, because your internal organs are what are driving your energy expenditure, right? Your digestive system, your heart, your, brain, all that stuff. That's the primary driver of your energy expenditure. And that's why energy expenditure is so strongly related to fat-free mass. Muscle is just a small component of fat-free mass. So,
and to piggyback on that, because again, we're going to start with there are a lot of myth busters in my line of question that I had for you, because I think that's what you do best. So, you have broken down, basically you just said 10 pounds of muscle help burn an extra, roughly give and take, about 70 calories. So, and then you have, especially in the bodybuilding community, but I'm also seeing a lot now in the more general population as well, the idea that it's like, oh, I'm just going to burn all this muscle and, I gained 10 pounds and surely I gained the 10 pounds of muscle in the 2 months that I've been training. And I'm like, no, well. So, and I know that I've looked everywhere and, it's a bit all over the shop. But with fat loss, there is more predictability from a healthy loss. Between half a pound, 2 pounds ish, give and take. That's a week, reasonable. What is that for muscle that people can expect to build muscle? Because I see, especially in the bodybuilding community, it's like, oh yeah, I could on like 5 pounds in a month. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
Yeah. There's no way.
You didn't.
I want people to conceptualize. Imagine going to the store. I mean, just to conceptualize how much 5 pounds of muscle really is, go to the store, go to the beef section, find the leanest beef that you can, and look at how much 5 pounds of really lean beef is. It's a lot. Like it's a massive amount. There's no way you're adding that amount of muscle in like a month. Like, it's just like even a beginner, beginners who get the best gains, even beginner rate, might be, and again, I'm going off memory here, maybe a couple pounds a month, maybe for a beginner. Like, it's like, that's a completely untrained person who has no, who has like no experience at all. I mean, even if you look at the scientific studies, I think, on beginners, a lot of studies are like 12 weeks. So that's what, 3 months. You'll see like maybe in 3 months, a 4 to 6 pound increase in lean mass, like, in beginners. Like, it's just not, I think people's perspectives on, how much muscle you can gain in a short period of time is pretty skewed,
Yeah, what I'm looking here in, the number that I normally try to tell people for reasonable expectations is like roughly a pound if you're a beginner, a pound to a pound and a half if you're a beginner, like a quarter pound per month if you are like in that intermediate, and then like literally a quarter of a pound per month if you are more advanced.
Yeah, advanced.
Would these numbers make sense?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I think those are totally reasonable numbers. Like, it's like, I think people understand, like, when scientists study, muscle gain on a 12-week study, I mean, we have to use ultrasound to actually look at the muscle gain. We're talking about, millimeters of muscle gain. Like it's just, you take out a ruler and look how much a few millimeters is. Like it's a very small amount in 12, when you're looking at an increase in muscle thickness. So it's not like, it adds up over time, but some of the stories out there are just not realistic. So
yeah, and I think that it becomes a little, pardon my French, a bit of a mind fuck, especially for women, because not that they gain muscle any different, but I think that you have a woman that has like gains 15 pounds in a short period of time. Like my husband is 6'3". He gains 15 pounds, doesn't make much of a difference. I gain 15 pounds is the difference between me feeling comfortable going to my kid's soccer game. And then you're stuck on this cycle of like gain 15 pounds, thinking that you gain 10 pounds of muscle, but it's not. And then you're chasing your tail to lose the fat. But then a lot of times is with a very aggressive caloric deficit, which then becomes counterproductive and rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, there's been a few studies, overfeeding studies on resistance trainers done. There was one that I can definitely remember, from a few years back. And I think it was on experienced trainees, and they had two groups, and one group, they fed a much higher calorie diet versus the other group. And both groups gained similar amounts of muscle, and the other group just gained more fat. Like you get to a certain point where, like, some people just, they make the mistake when they're bulking up, especially when you're more advanced, like they're way too aggressive with the bulking. And the thing is like, if you're having your body composition assessed or whatever, you'll see this increase in fat-free mass. And what people don't understand is, again, that increase in fat-free mass is not just muscle. It's a lot of body water and stuff that you're adding. And even, here's the other interesting thing, fat mass actually has a water component. And so, which on a body composition assessment will actually show up as fat-free mass. And so, like, you're adding some water to your fat mass, basically, like, because you're stuffing yourself, you're way overfeeding. And so, so you'll reverse and you lose some of that fat-free mass, and some of that fat-free mass loss is just water loss. It's not actual muscle loss, but it's not really muscle you gain in the first place. It was like, so. Yeah,
we're going to talk a little bit more about that whenever we talk low carb, because it's kind of still in the same family of thinking that you lost X amount of fat, but it's really not it's really not that. I just wanted to ask another question following up here with like the building muscle, because I feel like that right now before people were like afraid of eating protein, especially women. That's more of my demographic. Men have me on the protein bandwagon, but women, it was like low carb, lettuce and ice cubes, and be as skinny as possible. And now we have the opposite of that, which is like, we need to eat all the protein on the planet. And then it's like, eat protein. Everybody that I speak to, they're like, what I'm doing is eating more protein. I'm like, that's great, but I feel like there is a disregard for energy balance, because then they're eating all this protein, but gaining the fat and not training like true strength training for muscle hypertrophy. And then they just end up the bulky that they're trying to avoid.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, I mean, it's funny with it. Even food manufacturers are all on the high protein bandwagon. And so you see all these high protein foods and something, which, I love in some ways, but at the same time, it's like, you look at some of these sometimes like something will have 8 grams of protein, they'll call it high protein. And I'm like, that's not really high protein. But other times, like it might have high protein, but it'll also have high fat content or whatever, and it'll actually be high calorie. So it's like, well, it's, having all that extra protein there, if you're having all these calories with it, it's not really that useful. So it's
like the peanut butter.
If
you want a high protein, go eat peanut butter. I'm like, no, that's not high protein. Shut up.
Like peanut butter is not a protein source; it's a fat source. I mean, it's like I've always had this mental rule of thumb when I'm shopping at the grocery store. If I'm looking for a good protein source, I want my protein grams to be twice as much as my fat grams. And that's, to me, it's a simple rule of thumb. So if something has 20 grams of protein, 10 grams of fat, I'm okay with that. That's good. But if something's 20 grams of protein and 20 grams of fat, that's not a lean enough protein source for me. So like, I'll skip it,
Okay.
So
I love that. And and you have written on your website, I don't know if it was on your website, but I know that I've read somewhere where you talked a lot about how people are overthinking and overcomplicating their training and diet. And I am seeing a lot of that in the coaching space as well, especially with functional doctors, and like putting glucose monitors in healthy individuals, and, having all the tests and 75,000 different supplements, and without any regard to the foundation. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I would love your expert opinion on how do you feel that people or the industry or wellness industry is overcomplicating and overthinking training and diet?
I actually agree. I mean, it's like I've never been a believer. I don't think you can micromanage your body. I just don't. You can't micromanage your body, and that's what all this is. It's like trying to micromanage things that like that you really just can't do, and it probably just doesn't even make any difference in the long run. And it's like, I mean, it's almost like I had an analogy one time. It's like a smoker worrying about pesticides on their apples, right? Like, no,
I love that.
It's like you're smoking, man. You're smoking. Stop the smoking. Who cares if there's a few pesticides on your apples?
This is so true. Or getting like completely shit-faced. And listen, I drink my wine, but for me, it's the hypocrisy of being like the toxins. And then they're posting videos getting shit-faced and smoking cigar on the weekend. And I'm like,
I know alcohol is a carcinogen. Like you're worried about these toxins and you're sitting there drinking away. Like, it's like, it's, it's like, but even like, I mean, all the functional stuff and trying to micromanage, and like, actually, so I'm the, editor-in-chief for, Lane Norton's research review. And, we just, came out with an article, I think it was last month, on, menstrual cycle and training. And, one of the things was, because there's some people think that you should try to time your training with your menstrual cycle, like you're stronger here during these times or whatever. And the evidence indicates that doesn't really matter. Like you don't need to try to time it that way. It doesn't, again, that's just another case trying to micromanage things.
We had
And,
Dr. Lauren. I had Dr. Lauren here in the podcast talking about the cycle syncing, and she spoke at my event just last month here in Dallas. And that is a very good example on how people try to overcomplicate stuff without asking the fundamentals. Like, and this is something that I'm seeing a lot of, like jumping straight to like, it's my hormones. And I'm like, okay, possibly. How has your training been? Well, I haven't been having time to be consistent. And I'm like, okay, what about your nutrition? Well, like I get on, but then the weekend happens, but it's my hormones. And I'm like, is it though?
Well, yeah. And the other thing about that too, like I've talked to Eric Helms about this a lot. Some people like to do these really fancy periodization schemes for their training, right? The problem with that is that for that to work, your life has to be perfect. Like nothing can go wrong, right? But the thing is, like shit happens in life. And Eric, Eric said this to me once. He goes, life is going to naturally periodize your training, right? Like you're going to have times where you're forced to lay off. Maybe you get sick. I mean, if you have a family or kids, like, that dramatically changes like how you can structure your training and everything. Like, and so even the thought of having these really complex periodization schemes and trying to follow it, it's like, again, it overcomplicates things. It really does, especially like when there are just so many factors that are not really under our control,
Yeah. I think that this overcomplication is creating a barrier of entry for the everyday person to even feel like it's possible. Like it's becoming this, and this was a come to Jesus that I had from competing and spending like 5 hours in the gym and then having 2 kids within 14 months. And I'm like, I don't have 5 hours in the day to spend in the gym and to be, counting how many penne noodles I'm going to eat that day. Like it's just not feasible. But I feel like a lot of times people forget that life lives.
Well, yeah. And I think you'll have, and I was probably guilty of this when I was younger before I had kids and stuff. Like when you're a younger trainer and you've never had kids, you really don't know what it's like. You really have no clue what it's like. Like
it's so true.
My daughters are 13 and 11 now. And like and it's funny because as they've gotten older and more independent, things have actually just gotten busier for me because now they have all their sports and all these things, all their sporting events I got to go to and take them to their practices and like, all that stuff. So it's actually, it's even, makes training harder. It's like, it's funny because like, I was out on the boat with one of my neighbors, last month and he saw the pictures of when I competed in a men's fitness show. Like this was like 10 years ago. I still had the pictures on my Facebook page. He saw the pictures and he was like, yeah, I've seen your pictures, and he's like, so when you do that, what do you like work out every day? And I'm like, no, I don't. I was like, right now, honestly, I'm going to the gym maybe 3 days a week. Right. Yeah. I have some weeks where I go 2 days a week. Like, it's like, and I tried to tell him it was really more about the diet, than the training, but
they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Because then they're asking these questions as they're drinking a beer and you're about to stop by McDonald's because, that's what they want, which listen, we ain't judging. But the moment that we say, it's the food, they need to take accountability. And then it's like, no, my metabolism is low.
Yeah.
No, it's not your mouth is fast. It's not your metabolism that is slow.
Oh, exactly. So it's like, but yeah, it's like the reality is like the way my life is now. It's like, yeah, it's realistic for me to go to the gym maybe 3 days a week, and really, I think for most people, 2 to 3 days a week is probably what's realistic for most people. And I think younger trainers who don't have kids and, probably just need to understand that like literally like there is
different season of life.
Yeah. It's a different phase of life. You have just different priorities, and
so now we're going to change gears a little bit and talk about carbs. And I know that you have a whole series on insulin as well. So I created this section of the questions that is more around carbs, insulin, and fasting. Because I find they're all kind of like quasi correlated. So I can't believe that it's 2025 and I'm still asking this question, but here we are. So is a low carb diet superior? What does the data actually say? And where does the idea that the low carb, no carb is better? Like where did it originate?
Well, on a calorie equated basis, no, low carb is not any better. Like, it really, when you look at the data and the well-controlled studies where protein is matched and calories are matched, low carb does not do any better than high carb for losing body fat. I think what happens is, in uncontrolled environments, sometimes when people go on a low carb diet, what happens, they will spontaneously lose weight and eat less without even realizing they're eating less because, let's face it, a lot of the high calorie, tasty foods that we like to eat are typically high in carb and high in fat. And, and so you cut that stuff out, and typically when people go low carb, their protein intake goes up, which, has some appetite suppressant effect, and also when you go low carb, your variety of foods just goes down. And we know even food variety contributes to how much you'll eat. And we call that the buffet effect, right? Like you put people at a buffet with a wide variety of foods, they will eat way more than if you just give them a few choices.
And to piggyback on that real quick, because that's one of the things that I tell all the clients that we work with is like, you don't need the recipe with 72,000 ingredients. One, because you ain't got time to be making that. And two, because you're opening the door for a lot of miscalculation. And three, whenever you're adding so much, it just unnecessarily overcomplicate. And I think it kind of falls into that food variety, like of having too many options, you end up having everything.
Yeah. And it's like, there's something called, sensory specific satiety. So what they mean by that is like, the reason there's this buffet effect is because, we have different senses in our tastes. Like we like sweet things, we like salty things or whatever. And let's say I have this buffet and I eat a bunch of a salty thing, but I still got room for something sweet, right? It's why like when I eat a meal, I still feel like I have room for dessert, even if I had a full meal, because it's that sensory specific satiety, right? I have this big steak and whatever and fries or whatever. And then you bring me ice cream. That's a very different sensory experience. The ice cream is versus the steak. Now, I'm not going to want more steak. If you bring me more steak, I'm not going to eat more steak probably. But you bring me a completely different variety, I will eat more of that. And so that's kind of that whole idea of why there's a buffet effect. And so, yeah, so when we have, when you go on a low carb diet, it just, the variety of foods you can eat just goes way down. It just does. And so that contributes to people eating less, at least for a while. And so I think what happens initially is like, some people have great success. Without even tracking, they won't be tracking or whatever. A lot of times you go low carb, you'll get this initial water loss. It's very quick. That can be motivating to people. They see the scale going down, like, oh, look, this is working. It makes you stick with it longer. But over the long run, we know that low carb does not beat out higher carb. Like, eventually we know from long-term adherence data that have compared a variety of diets, the diets that work the best are the ones that people can stick to. So like now, if you can stick to a low-carb diet for a long period of time, more power to you. That's what works for you. That's awesome. I think go for it. Go low carb. That's awesome. But some people, that's not going to work. And so they have to have a different approach.
Do you know what I found? Like, I love that you mentioned this, James, because one thing that drives me up the freaking walls is like, oh, I can totally like stick to a low carb diet. Like, yeah. And I'm like, right. But what if like you are in a birthday party with your kids and they're serving pizza and cake and, you want to have the pizza. Oh, then I'll have it. Well, then it's not low carb.
Well, yeah.
So I think that people also have a little bit of a like delulu about what adherence actually is, because they're like, oh, I can totally I can see myself eating low carb forever. Well, unless we go to Italy, and then they start opening all the exceptions, and I'm like, then it's a no.
Well, yeah, it's like, it's very difficult for a lot of people to stay low carb forever because it's just carbohydrate. They're everywhere, right? It's like, But for the people that can do it, like I said, more power to them. It's
You've done researches on fasting, and you've talked a lot about fasting. So, in one of the things that the benefits that people talk about whenever we try to argue that the benefit of fasting is that reduces the caloric intake and the health benefits come from the fat loss.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no. But like fasting regulates glucose and, and then they start to get all sciencey and, and then we suddenly start trading six for half a dozen. So is there any truth that fasting on its own, like the fact of fasting, like just not eating, regulates glucose? Like what is where does the benefit come from fasting, if any?
There's not. I mean, when you look at the controlled studies that compare, that are calorie matched, and people that, let's say, whether they alternate day fast or if they do like, say, time restricted feeding where you got like an 8-hour feeding window or those type of approaches, there's no evidence that it improves blood glucose regulation or whatever, beyond whatever weight loss it causes. Like ultimately, the benefits people get, for example, let's say there's an improvement in glucose regulation, comes from the weight loss, right? Which just comes from the caloric deficit, right? I mean, we all know that weight loss improves glucose regulation because body fat causes insulin resistance and, obviously causes problems with regulating glucose. You lose the body fat, insulin resistance goes down, boom, you have better blood sugar regulation. And so there's no good evidence in humans when calorie intake is strictly controlled that fasting has any type of benefit. It's just another one of those. It's just one of those things where people want to market some type of little secret, that either nobody knows about or like the doctors, don't tell you, or like it's just bullshit. It's just bullshit ways people trying to make money. It really is. That's the thing. And the reason that stuff sells is because the stuff that actually matters and works is not sexy. It's boring. It's boring, and so it doesn't sell, right? People don't.
And it's not fast. And it's not fast. The results that people are looking for don't come overnight. It's not fast. So, people are promising fast, secretive, and like there's novelty attached to it. So there you go, like immediate sale.
Yeah. And the funny thing is none of this stuff is even novel. It's like this shit has been around forever. Like low carb has gone through so many different variations, but it's all been the same thing. There was the Atkins diet, and then Gary Taubes came around, and then the carnivore diet, which is just another variation of low carb. And then, like it always like tries to wrap it in like a kind of new gift wrapping, but it's the same bullshit. Like in new gift wrap. Like, and the same thing with fasting. Like it's like, I think even if you even go back to the 70s, there were different fasting diets back then. Like, it's just like you always just get some new huckster who finds a new way to package it, right? To present it as something new. And when it's not.
And I think that what is happening now as well is that we have more gadgets, because that is like in more novelty testing that basically just tell you like, I don't understand why people are getting devices to tell them that they don't feel good. Like, why are you getting a device to tell you that you don't feel good? And on the other side of your mouth, you're saying that I'm just listening to my body. No, you're not listening to your body. You're listening to a device that is telling you how you should feel. It's, can you elaborate a little bit why people are so like the whole insulin? It's kind of like, oh, insulin is the devil. And like, there's a whole, and slapping glucose monitors in healthy individuals. And again, going back to the novelty stuff. So can you elaborate a little bit on what insulin is, why like people, if he deserves the reputation that he's getting, and whether or not glucose monitors for healthy individuals are useful?
Yeah, it's like So, I mean, for people that don't know, insulin is a hormone that regulates blood sugar. I mean, that's why people with type 1 diabetes who cannot produce insulin, they have to inject it so that, so that their blood sugar can be regulated. It's released by your pancreas. So you eat a meal, your blood sugar goes up, your pancreas pumps out some insulin, which then helps bring blood sugar back down. Now, a lot of people think, oh, the insulin tells your muscle cells to open up to blood glucose and your muscles take up the glucose and stuff like that. I mean, it does affect that a little bit, but really the biggest way that insulin controls blood sugar is by affecting your liver. So your liver produces sugar. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like if you go to bed and you wake up in the morning, you haven't eaten for, let's say, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours or whatever. But your blood sugar is still, you still have, stable level blood sugar. Well, what's happening is your liver is pumping out blood sugar. It might be breaking down some protein, maybe breaking down, or, you have liver glycogen, which is carbohydrate stored in your liver. It's breaking down that glycogen, releasing that glucose into your bloodstream. You eat a meal, your body is like, oh, we got some glucose coming in. Hey, liver, you don't need to produce the glucose anymore. The insulin tells the liver, hey, stop producing that sugar. We got sugar coming in through this person's mouth or whatever. So it acts like a brake on how much sugar your liver is producing. That's why someone with type 1 diabetes, if they don't take their insulin, what happens is you get a lot of people, and I used to believe this too, years and years and years ago, that the reason, if a type 1 diabetic doesn't take their insulin, the reason the blood sugar just skyrockets is because it can't get into the cells, right? That's and that's actually not true. That's not the case. And we know from a lot of studies that actually sugar can still get into the cells. What happens is you no longer have something telling the liver to stop producing glucose. If you don't have that insulin, it's called runaway gluconeogenesis. Your liver just starts pumping out glucose and there's nothing to stop it. And so blood sugar climbs higher and higher and higher. You go into diabetic ketoacidosis, you end up in the hospital. What do? They give you insulin to tell the liver to stop producing sugar. I mean, that's how you treat diabetic ketoacidosis. So that's really how insulin functions in controlling your blood sugar. It's your primary signal to your liver. Hey, liver, either slow down how much sugar you're producing, or hey, you can speed back up, right? We haven't eaten in a long time. Blood sugar is getting kind of low. You can start, producing glucose again. So that's really the primary function of insulin. Now, when it comes to fat loss, what we know with insulin is insulin also, like if I were to incubate insulin, or let's say I took some fat cells and put them in a test tube and I had some insulin in there, insulin can actually signal fat cells to take up glucose, right? And also insulin will tell those fat cells to not break down fat into fatty acids or break down triglycerides. That's called lipolysis. So it inhibits lipolysis. So you can start to see why people think, oh, well, if my insulin levels are high, it tells my fat cells not to release fat. Therefore, I won't lose body fat. Fatter. Right? And that's kind of the simplistic thinking. And so it's understandable why people think that. The thing is, though, is that insulin doesn't operate in a vacuum, right? Like we're our bodies are not a little test tube of fat cells with some insulin. We have other hormones in our body, glucagon. We've got catecholamines like adrenaline, noradrenaline. We have GLP-1, glucose. We have tons of hormones and growth factors and all kinds of peptides in our body that are simultaneously interacting with insulin on how much fat is coming out of fat cells or whatever. It's not just the insulin. And then we also have to think of, okay, let's assume insulin does operate in a vacuum. Okay. Unless you're eating carbohydrates like 24 hours a day, I mean, you got to go to sleep sometime. I mean, there's going to be times where you're not eating. So it's still, there's at times where either times between meals or times when you're sleeping where insulin goes back down anyway. And so what you care about is what's the net effect over 24 hours, not what's happening after a single meal or whatever. And that's why where it really comes down to is energy deficit over a 24-hour period, right? That's what matters. That's why there's no difference between low carb and high carb, right? Because all that matters, assuming protein intake is the same in both cases, all that matters is the energy deficit over the 24-hour period. The insulin levels are completely irrelevant.
So, and for insulin to be kind of like spiked, it doesn't it's not just with carbohydrates. Consuming protein can also spike insulin. So if we have a glucose monitor in a healthy individual, and the reason I'm asking this is because we have a client that her job started handing out glucose monitors to their employees as a way to for health. And I'm like, but why though? What are you monitoring? Oh, okay, my insulin spikes after I eat. So again, this is a healthy individual. Is there any benefit with the knowledge that we currently have as a general population on collecting data from a glucose monitor from a healthy individual? And if so, what is it?
There's zero benefit. I don't even know why, I cannot see, here's the deal. You eat a meal, your blood sugar is going to go up some, right? If you got a glucose monitor, you're like, oh, my blood sugar is going up a little in response to the meal. That's what's supposed to happen, right? Eventually, it's going to go back down, right? But there's no useful information, the only useful information that comes from a glucose monitor is if I have diabetes and I need to keep my glucose from getting beyond a certain level. Or if I have pre-diabetes and I'm trying to and monitor my blood glucose. Those are the only reasons. Okay. Here's the deal. I'm 51 years old now. I just had my annual checkup. I have never used a glucose monitor. I have never used a glucose monitor in my life. Okay. There's literally, it's why would I need one? Okay. I just had my annual checkup. I had my fasting blood sugar taken, which is, something you want to, check annually. That's fine. My fasting blood sugar was 87. It was great. My hemoglobin A1C, which is my hemoglobin A1C was 5.1, which is great, right? And then, my blood lipids, that's a separate issue, were great. That's all I need to know. As a super cheap test that I get once a year, that's all I need to know. There's no benefit to having this thing on my arm, and it's not going to benefit me anymore. There's no additional information that it gives me that's going to help me.
So, it's kind of okay, you drink water and you got to pee. That's basically the thought process. Yeah. You drink water, you got to pee. Well, yeah. And then you have the glucose monitor. You ate your insulin, what up? Well, yeah. It's something that is supposed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't, I sit here and I sit here, I try to think what information will be useful from that? None. There's I can't even think of one little bit of useful information. If you're healthy, if you have diabetes, it's a separate issue, right?
Sure. Yes.
That's information that can be very, very helpful. But if you don't have diabetes, if you got good fasting blood glucose, you got good hemoglobin A1C, really, those are the only two numbers really you need to know. Your fasting glucose, your HbA1c. If those are good, and
then you solid.
You don't need.
What about fasted cardio? What about fasted cardio? Let's go now into fasted cardio because for the longest time, in the bro science, it was fasted cardio is superior, and then now you have Stacy Sams for women extrapolating the data and saying that, oh, no, women will fall apart and decompose if they do fasted cardio. So what is the what does the data actually show in regards to fasted cardio?
Well, it's funny because, when we did that presentation in Bath, I can't remember if we had already done the study or not. I know Brad Schoenfeld did a study, and I ran the stats on it. So I know it because I was involved in it. I don't know if we had published that study already. I think we had. Oh yeah, because I think I presented on it.
I think you had.
I think I presented on it.
You
right?
did.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it was a 2014.
And so like
2015.
we literally did a study on women. We did a study on women, comparing fasted cardio. We had one group do fasted cardio and one group do non-fasted cardio, and there was like statistically no difference in their fat loss over time. And again, conceptually, it makes sense because again, it's kind of like the insulin thing. Like people get very focused on what's happening like during the exercise, right? If I do fasted cardio, yes, I will oxidize more fat during the exercise. But here's the thing. It's not about what's happening during exercise. It's what's happening over a 24-hour period. So if the energy deficit is the same over 24 hours, it doesn't matter whether the cardio is fasted or not. It literally does not matter at all. Again, it's just where people like they overcomplicate things. They focus on these small things that don't really matter. They forget the big picture, which is the boring thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a good thing because it brings in personal preference, right? You know, some people like to do fasted cardio. If you like to do fasted cardio, great, do it. Like, you know, but if you don't but don't think you have to do it, like to try, it's not going to improve your fat loss or anything like that, you know?
Yeah. And I think that kind of what is the preference? But I think that's the thing. People are getting so lost in the sauce on the device that tells them that they're tired, that they didn't sleep, that they need to eat, that they burn this amount of calories, that if you ask them, like, what do you prefer? They don't even know. Yeah. Because they haven't allowed themselves the time to do the thing long enough even to be like, that is my preference. Yeah. And I think that's what we need to go back to.
And that's the thing. Personal preference for me is great because, I mean, what we really care about is adherence, right? Sticking with something, right? And like I said, I mean, if you like fasted cardio, but if you hate fasted cardio and you're never going to do it, then don't do it. Like there's no benefit to doing it. If you're more likely to do cardio when you're not fasted, and then that's what you'll stick to, then that's what's going to be better for you. Like it's like there's no magic there.
Yeah. So. I like, for example, for me, I can't eat before I train, but just because I'm not able to perform at the same level because I feel like I'm going to vomit at every step that I take. So it's better for me to, even a coffee sometimes can say funny. And then like people ask, do you eat before you train? I'm like, not really. Oh, that must be the secret. I'm like, no, that's it. Like, no, I've been doing this for 25 years, 27. So now from a fat loss perspective, you know, and it's interesting because we keep on talking about being able to adhere to the program that you're doing. But what I'm seeing in the front line as a fitness professional is that people are always looking for the fastest way. In fact, we've had to like members go because they kept on like wanting more. And I'm like, I'm not going to give you more because that is going to come with a risk that I'm, that I'm not able to sign off on. So what is the actual problem? Because it goes just beyond like gaining it back. Like what is the problem with trying to go the fastest route to fat loss?
I think it depends on who we're talking about here. For competitors.
Yeah, no competitors, just normal people, everyday people.
Okay. Because competitors, it's obvious. You lose muscle. Like the faster you lose fat, you're more likely to lose muscle. That's like, if you're a competitor, you got to lose it slow. That's just
but even for regular people, that would apply too. Like if they're losing very aggressively, like in the same format of a competitor, like getting ready for a vacation. Let me lose 20 pounds in like I don't know, like a month. There's going to be
I think it just depends on. I mean, there's two schools of thought there. And it's interesting when you look at the research on it. Sometimes, really rapid fat loss can be bad because basically it's not sustainable, right? And I think it depends on the person's mentality and what they're trying to do. Like if they're, like I said, if they're just trying to lose something for a vacation or whatever, that's not going to work long term. Now, for people with, let's say, obesity and stuff like that, there is some evidence that rapid initial weight loss can be beneficial in that it helps to create buy-in and but I'm talking like obese people, right? So there is some evidence that rapid initial weight loss can be beneficial, but that's why I say it really depends on the person, and depends on their situation, and it depends on like how are they doing it too, right? Like, is if you look at the research, it's like, because I used to always think that rapid initial weight loss is bad, it's not sustainable, whatever. But then I saw some studies on obese patients specifically. There were some studies where showed that the people who lost weight rapidly initially actually kept it better off over the long run. But I think it's because it created and I know Dr. Spencer and Nadolsky has talked about this because he works a lot with obese patients, right? And that's why I say sometimes, and that's why I think it's highly individual. There are some people with obesity, if you get that rapid weight loss and that rapid initial results, it creates buy-in. It actually helps. It creates some momentum that they're able to sustain for a longer period of time. But that's not going to work for everybody. There's some people where rapid weight loss, again, and that's why I say it depends on how they're doing it, right? Are they doing it through sustainable lifestyle changes? Because like here's the deal, like, if you're doing it through sustainable lifestyle changes and you're getting rapid initial weight loss, that actually might be a good thing. I mean, if it's a sustainable lifestyle change, but if you're just doing something like, I don't know, some fad diet or something like that, and you had no plans on permanently changing anything, then I would say it's going to have the opposite effect, right? Yeah, you might get some rapid initial weight loss, but then you're going to get a pretty rapid rebound,
Which that's what we see, like, I almost, and this again, this is anecdotal from what we are watching, is that a lot of the things that go fast, they come back fast because people almost give themselves a deadline. And I think that that's the problem. I think that probably, I have not looked at these studies, but I've interviewed Dr. Nadolsky as well, and we briefly touched on it. And it was more in the sense of like, it's a psychological and emotional impact rather than a physiological impact. And then there is the support throughout for them to be able to sustain that. But what I'm seeing with the majority of folks is, I'm going to get ready for the vacation, for the wedding, for this. Let me lose as fast as possible. And I don't know what I'm going to do after that.
Yeah. See, I think that's the two different types of people. I mean, you got the people that, they're trying to just get healthier, right? And especially like people with obesity and stuff, like, and especially the people that Spencer's working with. But I think probably some of the people that are working with you are probably the people that are like, hey, I just want to lose this for this vacation or whatever. And then they try to do it really quickly, and that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So,
and what about, you often talk about the adaptive thermogenesis and need reduction, because, whenever there is the talk, my metabolism is slowed down because I lost weight, and we've stepped away a little bit from the metabolic damage language. Now we're more into metabolic adaptation. But I feel like people still don't understand what that means. Can you elaborate on that as well, and how fat loss impacts the metabolism that people speak of?
Yeah. So, I will say this. So adaptive thermogenesis really just refers to a reduction in energy expenditure in response to weight loss. So your body loses weight. It tries to reduce its energy expenditure to resist the weight loss. Now, there are two primary ways where your body will try to engage in adaptive thermogenesis. It will try to reduce your resting metabolic rate, which it does, and that does happen. And that's where a lot of people think, my metabolism slows down or whatever. But the thing about that is that, yes, you do get a reduction in metabolism in response to weight loss, but the magnitude is not large enough to usually stop weight loss, right? Your resting metabolic rate might drop by 100 calories a day, when you're on a diet, right? That's certainly not enough to explain why, I suddenly lost weight. I must have, my metabolism has slowed down. Your metabolism didn't slow down by 3,500 calories a week or, 700, like 500 a day or whatever. It doesn't slow down that much. So there's a limit how much your body can reduce its resting metabolic rate, because you still have to stay alive, right? It's again, most of your resting metabolic rate is like coming from your internal organs functioning. Like your body can only do so much to reduce the energy expenditure of those tissues. The other component of adaptive thermogenesis, this is the one that we have more control over, although we're not always conscious of it, but we can do something about it, is the activity component, or I would say the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the spontaneous physical activity. A lot of good data on this, that when people lose weight, their spontaneous physical activity goes down. They may not even be aware of it happening. And the amount it goes down varies from one person to the next. But it can be pretty substantial. I know there was and I know I've presented on this study, Rosenbaum and colleagues, I think, were the authors. Maybe, I don't remember exactly. They had people confined to a small room, a small metabolic chamber. So not a lot of room to move around in this chamber. And what they found is, even when you have people confined to a small room, their spontaneous physical activity varies a lot from one person to the next, by up to, I want to say it was up to 500 calories a day, maybe even 800. I don't remember the exact numbers. But what we know is that, so as people lose weight, that spontaneous physical activity goes down. It can go down pretty significantly in some people. Some studies have shown it go down 400 or 500 calories a day, which is a lot. And so what happens is, it's not really your metabolism slowing down. I mean, that's a tiny role, not a huge role.
It's your will to move. Will to move slows down.
You're just not moving around as much, and you may not be even aware of it. And also, remember, I think I said earlier about the efficiency of the movement too. Like, your body becomes more efficient for the same movement. It starts expending less, starts wasting less energy as heat.
Okay.
And
I want to put a pencil on that, because I have a follow-up question on that, but continue.
Yeah. So the nice thing though is that we can at least try to counteract that some when we're losing weight by increasing our physical activity levels, just like walking around more. I mean, this is where, I'm not like you. I'm not a big fan of devices. The one device I do like pedometers or activity monitors, just as kind of a rough feedback to people how much they're moving around. Now, if it tells you how many calories you burn, don't pay attention to that number. That number is meaningless. It's not accurate or whatever. But usually any type of step count or whatever like that, I mean, there's going to be an error rate in that step count. That's okay. Just use it as a rough guide to kind of like, hey, how much am I moving around each day? Because maybe I'm not just moving around much. Maybe, if you can try to increase those step counts, get them up to 9,000, 10,000 a day. That's the type of device that the active feedback I think can be really useful to people.
Agreed.
Because it's kind of like calorie intake in the sense that most people eat more than they think they do. And activity is the opposite. Most people are way less active than they think they are. Right. And
I think the data shows up to 300% people overestimate how much they move, which is wild.
Yeah. It's like, people are just, they think they're way more active than they really are. Like, and it doesn't help. Like when you go to the gym and some of these machines, they'll give you this calorie burn. And a lot of times it way overestimates like how much you actually expend. And like I said, sometimes you wear these devices and it'll tell you, oh, I burned this amount, or, what killed me was like, so I just, over the summer, I had a trip to the UK and, the O2 building, it's like a big shopping center or whatever, well, you can climb to the top of it. You do this you can do the climb and, you get down to the other side. And so I did the climb with my daughters. And when you get down to the other side, I remember going in there and it said, you burn, I don't know, it said something like 700 or 800 calories on this climb. And I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, that is a total bullshit number. There's
the fuck I did?
800 calories on that climb. I was like, I wanted to talk to someone and say, dude, you cannot be putting out this number here because that is not That's not even close to being accurate.
And then the problem with that though is that then somebody looks at it and it's like, oh, I burned 800 calories, and then they'll go and order food for what they perceive to be 800 calories, but it's actually like 2,500 calories. So you have the underestimation here and the overestimation there, and then it's a shit show. So let me follow up this with another question before I ask about efficiency of movement, because I have something to ask you here. Does metabolism actually, quote, slow down as we age? Because that's the thing that we see a lot. I was actually speaking with a lady this week. She's like, oh, it's just my age. And I'm like, how old are you? She's like 45. And I'm like, oh, I'm 41. Stop it. So like, what's the thing on metabolism is slowing down or not as we age?
Metabolism does slow down as you age, but again, it's like the metabolic rate with metabolism slowing with weight loss. It's not enough to explain the typical weight gain you see as people age. Like, it's not a slowdown in metabolism. What really happens, and there's, and I think in my presentation, I gave this scatter plot of data of total daily energy expenditure with age and physical activity levels. What happens is people get older, they just get less active. They just get less active, you know? I mean, it's just like, and you just see this curve as like people get in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and their activity levels just keep dropping and dropping. And it's not a slowdown in metabolism with age. It's just like people just
slow down your legs. It's slow down your legs.
You know, it's like, yeah, it's like, and I get it. It's like, I think about myself now, you know, with my kids and stuff like that. You know, I mean, yeah, I'm still going to the gym, you know, but I think about probably how more active I was in my 20s and 30s. Like, I was like, well, I remember when I was working as a personal trainer, I was constantly like walking the floors or whatever. Even if I wasn't training people, I was always walking around. And like, I was just always just doing a lot more things. So, I mean, I can see why people gain weight as they age, because again, they're just less active, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I think it comes down to that perception, like people think they're more active than they really are. And I don't think people are just of aware, like, if, you know, and, you know, if you really think back to like your 20s and stuff like that, chances are you were probably way more active in your 20s than your, you know, 40s and 50s and, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So now time back to the efficiency of movement, which could also be put in similar category as exercise adaptability. Fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and this is something that I see a lot with people that do boot camps. You know, the group classes, that is always the jumping around like a like circus monkey, and like, I'm building muscle. So why, like, would exercise adaptability be the reason why someone who always does these boot camps always has to add more classes to their repertoire, because their bodies adapt and there isn't a lot of change? That's question number one. And question number two is still on that, piggybacking on that, because I do know that you're an expert on muscle building. Are boot camps, the high intensity kind of boot camps, an effective way of building muscle as people think?
So for the first question, I mean, I do think exercise adaptability is a thing. The only thing is, but I don't know how much it would impact at least the energy expenditure during exercise. I don't think it would be enough. Like, I don't think it would adapt enough where you have to keep adding more and more classes or whatever you're doing, you know. You know, I mean, we do know you do become more efficient as you become more fit. I mean, we know that from, you know, there's plenty of data on, for example, runners, right? Like distance runners, as they get more fit, they will expend, you know, less energy to do the same amount of work, you know, over time. But there's a limit to that, right? Like, it's not like it just doesn't keep dropping. You don't get to a point where your energy expenditure is zero, you know, while you're, you know, it's just like, you know, so there's always a limit to how much it'll adapt, right? So I'm skeptical that exercise adaptability would be an explanation why maybe it stops, say, working. Usually I think what happens in those situations, let's say someone's doing a bunch of boot camp classes and over time, they, let's say, and initially they start, let's say, losing some weight or losing some body fat or whatever, and then that stops, right? And they start to try to do some more classes or whatever like that. The thing is that usually what happens is really what's happening is usually you see a loss of dietary adherence, and it's usually not the exercise adaptability that's really causing the problem. Because we just know, I mean, there's just study after study after study. It's hard to stick with any type of diet over a period of time. Like dietary adherence naturally just kind of deteriorates over time. And usually that's a much bigger explanation of why people plateau for, a variety of reasons. Now, regarding the muscle building question, if you're a completely untrained person, I mean, literally any type of exercise that you do is going to build some muscle, right? And there's evidence that yes, even cardio type training will build a little bit of muscle or whatever like that. Is it going to be as good as weight training? No, I mean, it's not. But if you're untrained, you'll build I mean, it's not going to be the amount that people think it's going to be, but anytime you subject muscle tissue to any type of loading, even if it's lower intensity loading over more repetitive times, it will adapt with a little bit of hypertrophy, right? I mean, but there is a limit to how much that's gonna, because otherwise, if that was the case, then distance runners would have huge legs, right? Because as they keep adding more distance, it's like, that just, there's a limit to how much physical activity will, in an untrained person, how much more aerobic type or these high intensity classes will add muscle, but it will add a little bit. I'm not going to say that.
If for someone that is trained, and then they're like, I'm going to do classes because I'm looking to build muscle, would that be an efficient strategy or no?
I don't think so. I mean, for someone who's trained, no, I don't think so. Like for someone who's trained, really, I mean, and you want to add more muscle, you just got to add more weight training volume. You just got to add more volume. Like if you've plateaued, you just got to bump your volume up, your weight training volume, really. So.
Last question, and this one is your study, and this is another study that I know that you and Brad talked about in this presentation that I was in Bath, which is the whole anabolic window. That is the research that I think you are a part of it with Alan as well was a part of it, and I think that was one of the biggest analysis of mu frequency, because everybody thinks that there is this perfect timing that they have to eat, and if they don't eat. So what does the data say? Your data say on, this whole idea that you need to eat every so often in order to be able to burn fat?
Yeah. What our data showed was that it didn't matter. Like the frequency didn't matter. All that really mattered, again, is just, is the caloric deficit for fat loss, and for building muscle, same thing as far as protein timing, that type of thing. I remember our data indicating that really what matters is just your total protein intake and not necessarily the timing of that intake. And there's been more data that's come out since then corroborating that. There's really no anabolic window. You don't need to get a protein shake, like right when you're done with your workout. You don't need to chug a shake or whatever. I mean, most people are getting some protein somewhere around their workout anyway. I mean, unless you're training fasted and then you're not eating for another 6 hours, which, I mean, it's really not going to matter, so.
Which that's the crazy thing, because this is a study that you and Alan and Brad did, I think in 2015, 2014, like it's been a minute. And now you have like professionals in the industry extrapolating data and saying that, well, women, if they don't eat within X amount of time from training, they are going to like fall apart. And I'm like, are we back to this again? Like, what? It's been almost 10 years. Let's not go back.
Yeah, what's funny is it just gets back to this thing where people thinking they can micromanage their bodies. Like you can't, it kind of makes me think, I just rewatched the movie Jurassic Park just recently. And in that movie, what's the actor's name? Jeff Goldblum. He's talking about the dinosaurs. Like they made all the dinosaurs female so they couldn't reproduce, or whatever. And Jeff Goldblum is like, but nature finds a way, right? That's like what's his line in the movie, like, or life finds a way. And I'm the same way with your body. Your body finds a way. If you're training and you're just getting enough protein and you're controlling your calorie intake, whatever it needs to be, your body will find a way, right? To get to where you want to go. the little things that you're trying to do, like whether it's the timing or, little things here and there, in the long run probably aren't going to matter at all.
And I find that is so refreshing, especially coming from a scientist, because it's, as a scientist, it's very easy to, get very specific about that one thing and give almost like quasi, this is the way kind of thing. But I feel like you have also been very outspoken about not getting absolutely married to research and use them more as a guideline rather than an absolute thing, which I think it's beautiful. But then you have the people who don't come to it with a good heart, and then they're like, oh, the research says this, but research doesn't matter anyway. And I'm like, no, can we meet somewhere in the middle? Like, we kind of use it as a guideline.
Yeah. And there's limitations to research. I mean, especially when it comes to exercise research. I mean, a lot of exercise studies have small sample sizes. It's like, nutrition studies, have limitations. Sometimes it's hard to get, people are not
funding.
accurate with their, if it's self-report, there are a lot of times they're not accurate. Like, so there's all kinds of limitations with research, but it's still the best guide we have. It's certainly better than just, making shit up. It's like, and the nice thing again about, we have these general guidelines, and there's like a massive amount of flexibility within these guidelines, right?
Yeah.
Just a massive amount of flexibility, and like, which again leaves room for personal preference and that type of thing. But again, that 100%. Doesn't sell.
No, it's not sexy.
I'm not going to get rich selling that stuff,
No, it's not clickbaity enough. Like, what are you going to put in your hook in order to sell with that?
No, I know.
Just stay consistent.
I know.
James, is there anything that I didn't ask that you think would be important for the audience to know? Anything about what you're doing, or anything really about the data and the research? Now's your time if I missed anything.
Oh, no, I don't think you missed anything. I mean, again, it's just like, my message to people is always, keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate things. There's a lot of flexibility in how you can approach things, as long as you just meet the basics. And, which to me is refreshing. It's like, I mean, it's really nice to think that, hey, I don't need to slam a protein shake right after my workout, right? I mean, it's just things like that. Like, it's like,
or that you don't have to do fast and cardio.
Or, hey, it's okay. It's okay if I only get my weight training in, 2 days this week versus 3 days, or, just stuff like that. Like it's like, it's like use that flexibility to your advantage, but at the same time, don't be so flexible that then you're not sticking to anything, you're not adhering to anything, right? I mean, there's a balance there, right? I mean, you could be so flexible that like, I'm not going to work out this week and next week, and I mean, there's a limit to that, but you kind of get.
We call this being overly gracious, like you're overgracing yourself. So chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, James, where can people find you? Anybody that is listening, where can they find your work, or they can find the things that you write? Now is the time to share all of that, because I would love for people to check you out.
Yeah. You can go to my website, weightology.net. I have a lot of articles on there, the insulin articles. I have various other stuff on building muscle and stuff like that on there. I haven't updated the site in a long time, but a lot of this stuff is still relevant. I'm also the editor-in-chief for Reps. That's Lane Norton's research review. And so we put out a monthly research review covering the latest research on, exercise, nutrition, stuff like that. And so you can check that out. But that's kind of the main two places you can find me. So.
Love it. I'll add all the links in the show notes. I'll add your Instagram. I know that you don't use your Instagram very much, but I'll tag it anyway.
Oh, yeah. I need to do it more. I'm not on social media a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah. You don't strike me as an Instagrammer, so don't worry.
Well, I don't know how to, like, some people that do it like all the time, I'm like, how do you have time to do this? Like, it's like seriously, like I actually, who did I talk to? Who was it that I talked to? I don't know. This is like maybe 3 or 4 months ago. He was in town here. Ruka Hokavar is his name. He gave a
I know Luca. Yes. Yeah, I know Luca from Vigor.
He does a big conference here in Seattle, the Seattle area. And so he had one of his guests was Jordan Syatt. So I remember talking to Jordan does video, like all these videos, right? I remember asking him, I was like, how do you have time to do all this shit, man? Because for me, just to do one Instagram thing just feels like takes forever. And he goes, it's so much work. He like told me like how much work it was. I was like, oh my God, I can't imagine doing that. So,
yeah, no, my husband, he started his business, and every post that he had to create, it was literally a 3-hour event. And I'm like, you need to outsource that because it's not going to work. Well, James, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure. And I'm going to put all the links in the show notes so everybody can go find your stuff and get more knowledge from you, which, I like to say to everyone that is like straight from the source. It's not somebody interpreting the data. You're the guy who did the thing. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. But let me ask you, what was your aha moment in today's episode? I would love to know. You can leave me a comment at the link in the show description. You can also follow me on social media, Instagram. Links are down below as well. And let me know what topics you want to hear more about or who I should have on the show. This is it for today, guys. I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.